morning and welcome to the Sports Desk, streamed live on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez. With us is our special guest today is Texico volleyball coach Kristen Scanlan. And Coach, thanks so much for joining us. We sure appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Coach, what we're trying to do here, as I mentioned to you during our conversation, right now sports is locked down. We hope for a return, in February, March. We're hoping that sports will start again, and it's had an effect on everybody throughout the state. So we're trying to get as many differing views on how it's affecting Texico girls. You and I had a long, lengthy conversation about how Texico volleyball, first of all, has established quite a tradition over the years. And you've established quite a winning program there. And we'll talk about the state championship success that Texico has had here in a bit. But talk a little bit about the tradition of Texico volleyball. And, you mentioned this, that it came before you did. It was there before you were there. And again, it's hard to establish a winning program. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think from what I have gathered doing my research, the tradition really started with Mike Littlejohn. I was an assistant for him for 2 years in 2006 and 2007. Those teams did win a state title. He did win another state title when he was coaching, I believe, in 1985. Its tradition is wonderful. I always say it gets you at least 3 points a set, and just automatically, because other teams, when they come in to play Texico, they know that we have a reputation of success. So it's great. Our seniors establish the tradition every year. They add to traditions. This year, we've added a neat little lunch pail tradition. It's a go to work tradition, and it's an opportunity to make memories. So every year, it seems like the seniors add more to the tradition. But yeah, winning definitely breeds winning. If we were a losing program, it's far harder to get your kids to buy in to the goals and the culture that you believe need to be there to be successful. But winning is definitely not everything at Texico. The journey is number one at the start of the year. Our journey, how we journey through the year, how we get better as people, how we get better as players, and the team we become is the most important thing.
Talk about that a little bit, because I've talked to a lot of coaches throughout the state, and it's not just about volleyball, football, or basketball. You mentioned journeys as people, which, they're not going to be at Texico forever, right? And under the tutelage and guidance of someone like you, you can have such a huge influence, and I'm sure you have. So talk about that journey. Journeys mean so much to me. They really do with young people, because you're in that position of developing them as volleyball players, but as people. Talk a little bit about the journey Texico goes through.
Well, I think we start, I'm fortunate to be able to work in our junior high program. At our school, I get to be in the junior high workout time, and I get to go to some of their games. And so it kind of starts there. We always like our upperclassmen, our eighth graders or our seniors to be able to lead those younger kids, but we pour into them as they go through our programs so they know how to lead better. I think, starting this summer, starting lockdown last spring for COVID, we had our seniors took the reins. They started working out with kids at home in small groups like we were allowed to do when we couldn't be at school. And they started pouring into those kids at that time. They've done a lot. Our seniors have done probably more during these last 8-9 months than my normal seniors do, because they've had to lead a lot on their own with their little small groups. But normally in the summer, our seniors start to establish what they want for their gym goals, their gym culture. And we start in the summer. We play July and half of August as our opportunities to get in the gym and just have summer play. Volleyball's fortunate to be able to do that. And so that's where it all starts with our kids. But the journey, like you mentioned, is huge for us, because we are trying to form women that are responsible, that are good sports, that do well in the classroom. Usually we have about a 97% of our volleyball team is on the honor roll, which is great. And in 2019, we received the AVCA All Academic Team, and we haven't ever done that before, so we were thrilled about. But a lot of our kids, probably about 92% of our kids, go on and play college. So academics at Texico has always been the top priority. And from there, it breeds success in our athletics as well. But the journey is huge, because that's what I remember as a high school player, as a college player, I remember our journey. I don't remember medals, tournaments won, state titles. Those things are not as memorable as the journey that we go through. The times that we suffer usually are the most remembered, and that times how we bounce back from those. And then also, those infamous bus rides where we really get to team bond and learn more about each other. Super important.
Those, you know what? All of them, every single one of the things that you mentioned is hugely important to the development, as you mentioned, of young ladies, because sometimes, and I've been on both ends of that, right? Wins, losses. I remember as a basketball official, I would be in a close game and calling the game, and I'd go to the locker room saying to myself, "Darn it, I wish somebody didn't have to lose that game." But sometimes we learn more by losing. It builds more character, right? And you just mentioned that. And I think one of the things about your community is if you have the success that you've had, the young ladies in that community want to be a part of Texico volleyball. What you said to me is hugely important here about it's worth 3 points a set tradition, right? Winning tradition, because the other team along the way is going to crack it because they're thinking, oh man, you have to be excellent to beat this team, right? We can't make mistakes. And mentally speaking, you have to have that mental toughness not to do that. And it's tough sometimes. So I think that's when you mention that 3 points a set, that's huge. That really is, because that comes sometimes the matches come down to a point here or there, coach.
Definitely. Well, and I think being able to teach the girls coming up that what over the years what these girls have established as the Texico volleyball program, they just learn it as they come up. So it makes them usually more competitive, mentally tougher. They seem to have more grit. And we always try to play. Another thing that I think that we do here that is important is we always try to play up. We always try to go to play to tournaments where the classification is higher than us, so that we can find out, where we need to get better, where do we need to work on. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a skill. I mean, it might be, hey, we're not very physically, mentally tough. We've got to get stronger in those areas. So it shows us those things. And then by the time we get into district play, we've formed some bonds because we've had to go through adversity. The beginning of our season, I think last year we ended our season with 6 losses. Well, those 6 losses were to upper class teams that were usually ranked in the top 10, top 12 teams. So it allows us to figure out where we need to get better instead of having that team that coasts in thinking they're pretty good, which is tough. I mean, our kids come in and they expect to win every year. So sometimes that can be almost a detriment because they don't understand the work ethic they have to put in to be able to get to that state title game or get to that state tournament.
Somewhere along the line, I've always said this, sometimes it doesn't hurt to lose on the way, it doesn't hurt. I'm not saying I'm an advocate for it, but sometimes when teams are coasting and they get literally sometimes punched in the mouth, right? They go back to the locker room, they're like, and it wakes them up a little bit. Why are we here? Why are we working for this goal? And then all of a sudden everything's focused in again, because sometimes when teams coast, and you've seen it, coach, I'm sure, teams go in cocky, thinking they can't be beat, and then they are. And then sometimes you learn, like I said, you learn so much, and you don't want to lose. Nobody wants to lose, but everybody inevitably does. And that's what we sometimes learn more lessons from. So it sounds like, again, the Texico program has built that tradition step by step, and it doesn't get there overnight.
No, definitely. It's been a process. And it was I inherited a program that their season in 2007, they were undefeated. And so that's quite a opportunity to be able to inherit that, and just added things along the way to try to make it our own little thing. And the girls have brought forth a lot of things that they like to do that they feel like builds team bonds. We do a lot of team bonding things, activities and opportunities away from the gym to build relationships with one another. Because with girls, it's a little bit different. They have a hard time going out to play a game or a match when they've got a disagreement with the teammate. Boys seem to do it a little better, but girls, they've got to have those connections and those close bonds. And so we work hard to build those bonds outside of the gym as well.
That's interesting, right? Okay, so that's something that we wouldn't have known. You just told us that. And I think that's important. So there's challenges to coaching boys and girls, for sure. There's no question about it. But I want to ask you this, Coach. Since the lockdown, we talked at length about the mental health of athletes, right? Now, we're hoping things go off. We're still hoping, right? We still got to hope that things will go forward in March. We definitely are hoping for that. But talk about a little bit since the lockdown last March and how things, the mental health of the team. You're still getting 24 kids, you told me the other night, out of 30 to still show up for workouts. And I think that's incredible. But talk a little bit about how the kids were a little bit when they found out they weren't going to play. Talk about the reaction then.
Well, we worked really, really hard from the time we said we could go, and we had 5-to-1 pods, following all the guidelines that we needed to follow, trying to do everything right. And so we were going, and then October 5th was that start date that we were supposed to start. And then when we found out October 5th, we were going to push the start date back a little bit. That was a pretty good blow for our kids because they were ready to go. They were ready to start playing 6-on-6. At that time, we had gotten to 9-to-1 pods, but 9-to-1 is 10. And volleyball game is 6-on-6. So we still couldn't really go against each other. And, you can only do individual skill drills for so long without competing. And the big deal, the guidelines set down by Sally was that she didn't run a lot of competitiveness against the net on the net. So it was a real struggle when we finally got to go 9-to-1, got to kind of go against each other a little bit, not so much blocking, but we got to go against each other.
Blocking at the net, right.
Yeah, we were going against each other 5-to-4. And then we found out our athletic director came in, had a meeting with Sally, and let the girls know that that we were actually, after pushing that first game back, we were canceling the first game or push it back. Then he came in and said it was canceled. And yes, it was really tough. There were a lot of tears. I had 2 or 3 really tough days at home myself, just because I worry about the seniors, and what the seniors have gone through to get to this point in their high school career. Many of our kids do not play college athletics. Most of our kids are multi-sport athletes. And I think they had poured so much into from the spring with their small group workouts, meeting with kids, maybe even taking them to the park, having a drink, soda, to all the way through all the dynamics of the summer, not being able to have a summer where we travel to Artesia, travel to Hobbs, have some tournaments in Portales and Clovis nearby, sometimes go to Albuquerque for the Rio Rancho. I mean, all of those things are really special things to our kids because we play teams outside of our classification. So it's an opportunity for them to see how they are. Then to have all of this positiveness, it was tough. It was tough on all of us.
Coach, we're going to take a short break and we're going to hold that thought, and we're going to talk more about that when we come back. We'll be back to the sports desk after these messages.
Oh, let's get a little closer.
Oh, instead it's a gorgeous pass.
Here's what he'll
just shoot it.
He's going to go all the way.
He's gonna fire at the buzzer and he hits.
Great pass, Hadbury, and thank you very much. Tie in the district, inside, fly, Eagles.
Chavez uses some athleticism, and then Morris down low, able to finish. You called it, Steve, in 10 seconds, and look at this, stripped, stolen Watson. Christian Lucero beats the buzzer. Here's Ian Chavez, the sharpshooter. Got it.
Couldn't have said that any better. He answered the question. He
On
got
a
another
steal
one.
at the buzzer. Back to back for Chavez.
To the paint. Medina from the volleyball lines. Medina wants another one from deep. Oh, he wants 10. Give him 10.
Lewis finds Watson. He's going to finish. One-handed slam. but just all the different scenarios we could see potentially play out ahead of the state tournament.
Oh! Ho, ho, ho!
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of ProView Sports Network. Don't sacrifice quality of flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Welcome back to the Sports Desk, streamed live on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with Texico volleyball coach Kristen Scanlan. And Coach, again, thanks so much for joining us. Now, Coach, before we broke, you were talking about the effect on athletes, and we talked a little bit more during the break. Talk again about, you mentioned the summer that you didn't get because of the pandemic, but you also mentioned some other things that I think are important, the interactions at school and, the online learning, things like that. Talk about that a little bit, because that's really important, because I think when the interactions at school with teachers and classmates and students, they're not getting that right now, and we understand that for now. We do get that, and we're just hoping, and there's hope down the line. So talk a little bit about how it's affecting Texico High School from your point of view.
Well, I think when we ended the season, we said that we're going to postpone it. We're going to have it in the spring. That gave our kids a lot of hope, gave me a lot of hope, that all of the work we put in, the work the seniors had done for 4 years to get to where they were, there's still a possibility. I think the fact that we just have not been able to get back to inline in school, not online, but in-person learning has just been a crusher for kids. I know I teach elementary PE, so we've been in a hybrid. I've been able to see my kids twice a week, which has been so huge. I can see the total difference in the kids being there. Where our students, there's some of them are actually struggling. Some of our best students are struggling with some of the online courses because they're not able to get that in-person learning. They're struggling with the fact that some of them are struggling because they're not being challenged as much as they probably would if they were here at school. I know that they're really struggling with not being able to walk in the hall, say hi to their teammates, their classmates. They're not able to do a lot of the extracurricular things or, the National Honor Society things. I know our FCCLA program's huge. Our FFA program is huge. They've been limited to what they've been able to do in those programs as well. And again, Texico is a super high academic school. So all of those things, fill that total person, that social, that emotional well-being of the student athlete. And we've definitely seen it with our kids, some of our kids. We've had to really work hard. Rebecca Burns is my assistant coach, and I myself and my seniors, especially over the Christmas break, touching base, reaching out, calling, texting, trying to meet in small groups to make sure these kids get through these holiday times, where some of them, have gone a whole 4 weeks. By the time we get back to our workouts, they'll have gone a whole 4 weeks without even really seeing their athletes, their teammates, their classmates. It's been tough.
I'll tell you what, again, when you say that some of your best students are struggling online, that tells me a lot right there. That tells me a whole bunch, because going in the halls, right? I remember going in the halls at Highland High, a million friends, right? What's up? And man, right? And those are some of the best moments of my life. I mean, you move on from high school, everybody does, but you always look back with, well, I did. I know some people didn't, right? Some people don't maybe have those memories, but I know I did. There was some great times. So I think you're right about the mental health. let's go over some pictures here because Texico won titles. You weren't part of the 85 or 2001. You were an assistant to Coach Littlejohn starting in 2006 and 2007. Titles 2008 through 2011 and 2014 through 2019. Wow, what success! Our producer Alden Iwani is going to put those pictures up, and we can still talk during those pictures. But what success, and 5 straight titles, 3 straight titles. I don't think they ever got old and winning. Coach, talk about that a little bit.
Well, it was fun because every team was different. You think the championships teams would have a lot of similarities, but every team has a different personality. And so you coach them totally different. You work with them differently. Some teams are a little more needy and some teams are a little more, hey, we got this. I mean, I felt I had a couple of teams, I could have gone up in the stands and just watched and cheered and everything would have gone great because they had such great leaders. But it's been a fun ride for me. I feel I'm very pleased to just be able to be associated with these girls because they're great. They're great women. And we've stayed in contact, of course, over the years. I've seen them, I've gone to weddings, they're starting to have babies. So it's been a lot of fun. My 2 daughters were a part of that 2008 through 2010 group. And so it was special for me to be able to work with them as well. So I've been really blessed to have been able to inherit such a great program from Coach Littlejohn, who did a lot of the groundwork, as well as be able to extend it. It's been a real blessing.
Well, yeah, don't sell yourself short, Coach, because yes, you did inherit it from Coach Littlejohn, but you built on that. And I can only imagine how special it was to share that with your daughters, because when you see teams of the past and they see you, oh gosh, the feeling, right? You don't forget the feeling on the floor and winning that blue trophy. That never goes away. And each team had their own special, like you mentioned. Sometimes maybe you thought, hey, I'm over coaching, right? You mentioned teams that did need coaching. Maybe I'm over coaching. Maybe I'm under coaching. But you still had that success, and those titles and the bonding that you had with those young ladies will never be forgotten, no matter if it's 50 years down the way. That's got to be special.
Well, I hope that it's not just the bond I have with them, it's the bonds they have with each other.
Right.
One of our traditions that we have at the end of the year is we have a team meeting when we get back from the state tournament. We all meet the following Monday, and we get to really share with our seniors how much they've meant to us. And there's a lot of tears that happen in those meetings because the seniors finally realize the impact they've had on the underclassmen that have been a part of that journey. And so that's always a special time for me. But the bonds that they have formed with each other and the lifelong connections of being able to get together, that's what makes my heart happy. The wins and losses, they're there, but that's not the most, it's the relationships that you have with those kids and the relationships they have with each other. Super.
Yeah, and you know what, those last for life. I'm smiling about it because I've been around sports so long that I've seen those connections and made some similar connections like that. Coach, let's go talk about now. Farwell, Texas is just a stone's throw away from Texico, right? You can see it.
Less than a mile.
Less than a mile. Now, Farwell, Texas is playing sports. Now, they play football, no volleyball, right? They play basketball. Now, it's important to note that, yes, they've had some virus breakouts. They've had it, but they've managed. Talk about that a little bit. And it's got to be hard for the girls to see that, again, just a mile away. And, they're playing and we're not. Again, we understand, we're just saying, talk about that's a unique situation. I don't know that a lot of people are on the border of Texas right there. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, and I think we're losing some kids. I know today I heard that we're losing 5 elementary kids to Texas schools. We've lost some high school kids and athletes to move over there so they can be a part of the entire learning process, not just athletics. They're not moving for athletics. They're moving to be in school because in-person learning is important to them and to their parents. It's tough on our kids. It's tough for my golfers to go over there and play on the Farwell golf course, and they have to wear masks and they have to social distance and be in a really small group. And they see other golfers out there just playing like it's a normal day. It's tough to go. We had a couple athletes in our girls program that moved to and are playing basketball at Farwell. We went and watched them play. It's just tough to see it. They're going full force. So it's just another thing I think that's on the shoulders and the minds of our kids that are here. And they are constantly asking their teachers, the administrators, us, why? Why? We don't understand why. And that's probably one of the biggest questions we get is why or when. The why and the whens. When are we going to get to return to school? When are we going to get to play? Why are they getting to do that and we're not? So it's very foggy over here on this side of the state.
That's got to be hard. That's got to be hard now. Now they're talking about, I don't know if they're out there in Texico, they're talking about maybe a school, return to school in late January. Is that the case out there in Texico? Have they talked about that?
Well, I know that I'm pretty sure unless things change or get a lot worse, so I'm pretty sure our elementary will be back on the 18th. So we'll be back on a hybrid, being able to work with them. It's always my prayer, and I'm a very faithful person, so I've been praying for some time that if we can just get from the elementary to the junior high, get the junior high going. Then 2 weeks down the road, go from the junior high to high school. That's just our hope. If we can get them in school, I feel like we can get them in sports and athletics.
That's the next step. We've got about a minute left, Coach, and you wanted to highlight your seniors, and I want to give you a chance to do that.
Well, I probably have some of the hardest working seniors, and I know a lot of coaches feel the same way that have been fantastic leaders throughout. I've got 3 of those girls are returning all-state players, so it breaks my heart that they're, as of right now, they haven't been able to have a season. Hopefully they will. But they've just have set the perfect tone for these times with their teammates, and I'm just super proud of what they've done. And I know that somewhere down the line, no matter what happens, they have grown through this as leaders and as women. And I think they'll be better off for it. And I tell them that all the time. But I want to end with this quote, if you don't mind, because I think it's very pertinent. It's a quote from St. Teresa. And she says, "The most terrible poverty is loneliness and the feeling of being unloved." And I feel like that is what we're surrounded with so much of the time. Our kids are lonely and they want to be loved. And the best way we can love them is to be around them and be in person. And I look forward to being able to meet with my athletes again in those small group pods on January the 18th and being able to get back to a routine that they so desperately need.
Coach, no substitute for the human touch. I absolutely agree there. Now, the virus notwithstanding, because we have to pay attention to that, and hopefully that's eradicated more down the line. Texaco head volleyball coach Kristen Scanlan, thanks so much for being our guest. We wish you all the luck, and we'll definitely be in touch more down the line. We sure appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. That'll do it for this week's Sports Desk. We'll see you next Tuesday. For producer Alden Iwani, I'm Ed Nunez. We'll see you next Tuesday on the Sports Desk.